colleagues, I hope that you have had time to have your breakfast. Now we have some forces to start our fast sprint breakfast and to have this breakfast duly organized. And I would like to tell you to quote Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who said that the only way to have the independence for a state is to have a strong agriculture, even if you are the richest state in the world, but you have no food, you'll have to buy it from other states. So it's what gives you the freedom from other states. We have the Global McKinsey institutions, which analyzes the digitalization of this industry, and according to the studies, today the agriculture occupies the last of 22 industries for digitalization, and it's very optimistic because low base is always good for us. We have space to grow, we can show a good result on the one hand, and on the other hand there is a clear conclusion, and we have to admit it. Adam Smith said that if we leave apart the art, the industry which requires the majority of experience and knowledge is the agriculture. So that's the reason of our today's situation, and we cannot act like the digital industries. I would like to thank the participation of the Vice President of the Government of the Russian Federation, Alexei Gaidar, and give him the floor. So, Mr. Alexei, what future of digitalization of the agro-industrial complex of the Russian Federation do you see? Thank you very much. You quoted great philosophers, and I like American philosophers. They say that if you eat, you are part of the agro-industrial complex, and I think that it goes with today's agenda. And as to the digital technologies, there were some changes in terms used in digital technologies, but in agro-industrial complex we have several examples like Avant-Garde Agro enterprise. I visited their enterprise 10 years ago. It's a big holding, probably you know it, and they showed me how they were controlling the harvesting operation from Moscow, and they didn't need by then any specialist in the field. I understand that all the specialists who work in this industry, they know it, but anyhow the digital technologies, it's not something new for the agricultural complex. So the main topic of today is the transformation, and we have to settle all the terms. We have to understand clearly what is the transformation and digitalization. So as I understand, we are dealing with the integration of the digital technologies to guarantee the management of the whole chain up to the final consumer and user, and this participant of agro-industrial complex, as I said before. And here it's very important to understand that we are speaking about the digital economy, digital agriculture, but it has to be something more than a new hype, like young people say today, because we've had several examples in the last years with big elements of state politics like nanotechnologies, for example, the modernizations, and there is a number of concepts like innovations, for example. We haven't had any conclusions and any real fruits of those programs, so I wouldn't like the digitalization to be more efficient. But otherwise, all those processes that I've mentioned, they are running, and I don't think that we have to persuade nobody that the digitalization is something obligatory for the business organization, because without digital technologies you cannot be the leader of your industry. And I would like to hear from you today during this discussion, what do you need as a business from the state when we declare this digital transformation of the agro-industrial complex? We need to know whether, for example, you need to use the big data which the state has. We're dealing with 70-80% of the big data we have, although there are many unnecessary data, or you need that the state made the communications infrastructure for the rural areas, for you to have access to internet and good quality internet, and use all the advantages and all the management system and databases. Or do you need us to create conditions for investments, cheap long-time loans and investments, because they are important for all kind of development, and for digital technologies is like the oxygen for a human body. And putting it other way, we are joining together in this digital world, the state and the business, and we as the state try to level the competition. Sometimes we suppress these entrepreneurial activities, and we are thinking about something like Rostec company, but in the agriculture. Although I believe that today's agriculture in Russia, this industry has a very strong advantages in comparison with many countries, because it's a totally private sector. We have competition there, and people that work in agriculture, they are entrepreneurs, and they know better what to plant, what to sell, what kind of technologies do they need, and the state has to create the best conditions for business in this sphere. I believe that it's enough for the beginning. I don't know whether our business understands what do I mean, but we have to choose together the right way. We have to find the balance and to complete each other, making the business stronger and the state more attractive and civilized. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexei. Dear colleagues, Alexei has mentioned many important things, including the hype component, because we understand that if it's just hype, we don't need to invest money in it, because we'll have huge losses. Otherwise, business is always following the consumer, and if we pay attention to the technical aspects, there are plenty of details which has to do with data analysis, with the equipment you need, and the infrastructure, because without infrastructure, because the high-speed internet, you cannot get the digitalization of this industry. And if we analyze today's market, merchant acquisitions, the great investments in this sphere, and many contracts with Chinese mini Deliveroo, with mail-through acquisitions. It has to do with food transport, and those are technologies which are the closest for the consumer, and the consumer is ready to use them. And that's why we all have the question: if we deal with transformation, with deep transformation, so how can we achieve transformation in other segment of our development? How can we use the digital technologies for the creation of new plants, new seeds? How can we use the digitalization to optimize our logistics and the rest of our operations? So that's why I would like to go back to things that we've mentioned about 2 years ago when we spoke about the creation of new heaven, if you would like to call it, in the Tambov province. I would like to ask the head of Tambov administration, Mr. Nikitin, one question. As I understand, the key sector of Tambov economy is the agriculture, and in 20s, if I'm not wrong, there was created so-called Michurinsky Valley. Could you tell us, please, what is it about and what is it like? Good morning, dear friends, dear Alexei, dear colleagues. Well, I would like to tell you more about the digitalizations, and but I've been asked about the innovation technological centers that we are creating right now in Tambov province, and we have some good results in this field. Well, I would like to mention both things, the digitalization and the innovation center. I agree with Alexei. He mentioned the hype thing, and I would like to tell that today in this digitalization thing we have a problem with terminology, and we have the term of digital agriculture, intelligent, smart agriculture, precision systems, and many other terms. And as to the agro-industrial complex, as to the agriculture and processing industry, the program which offers the Ministry of Agriculture of Russia, the digital economy of Russia, is a program which has the objective of structuring this field. I'm sure that this program will give some fruits, some results, and we see that it's an intent to structure this field. I also agree with Mr. Alexei. As he said before, many things that are planned to be introduced, they aren't new. We had it before. We are dealing with SCADA systems, and today we have to just take it to other level, to the new modern one. And I would like to divide the digitalization in two stages. The first stage is the digitalization of technological production processes, and it's very important. And the second part is the transfer of the agricultural markets to digital platform, and it's very important to have a systemic approach. And as to the digitalization of the industrial processes, here the most important thing is the Internet of Things, the big data technology, the artificial intelligence, virtual reality. And what do we have today? We have many results at regional level of Russian Federation, and in our province, Tambov province, we also have good innovation projects, things that you can look at, you can analyze, you can scale up, the creation of the so-called smart fields and other projects. In Tambov province, this year, for the 14th day of farmer, we want to show a new technology of smart garden, which was created in 2018. But this year we're ready to present to make a big presentation. It's a work which was done by Moscow State University, Moscow Physics University, and the specialist of our innovation center. I would like to tell also that speaking about the digital economy of agriculture and the program of digital economy, there the most important part is the digitalization of technological processes, and we have some positive results in this field. I believe that my colleagues will share also their experience in our province, Tambov province, 2 years ago, within the framework of a pilot project. We created a map of agricultural lands, more than 2 million of hectares, with all the information on those lands in one information database. And we have interesting innovation project as to the creation, for example, of a smart herd with intellectual systems for livestock breeding, and with the use of all computer system you need, applications you need to control your livestock, and you don't need any person there, all kind of sensor, contact technologies, now contact technologies, and distance management technologies. Also, we are working with distance milking, which is in modern industrial complexes. I was at a new farm about a month ago, and it's totally digitalized. All the work is done by robots, and of course, when we saw people working there, it was more interesting. On the other hand, the new systems which are introduced today, they have the objective of improving the quality of milk, to improve the productivity, and their final objective is to make longer the productive life of animals. As to the birds and bird farms, we have very interesting examples like Pervomayskaya Indeyka complex, where they produce turkey meat, and they have special programs and systems to control the climate conditions, the feeding, everything you need to control the quality of the meat. And you have people there, but the use of all the systems, it helps improve the quality. So we understand all those innovations at regional level. We have something to show as Tambov province, but our main project is the creation of a digital platform and the transition of the agricultural market to the digital platform. And I would like to mention von Hayek and other classics of economical theory. They were saying that the future of economy is in the transparency of the markets and the clear understanding of their relationships with the consumer. And we think that this digital platform in the agricultural complex, if we create this platform, and we believe that we will accomplish this goal, so it will help to solve all the problems we have right now. The today problems, they are local monopolies of processing industry and the global monopolies of commercial networks. So if we implement this project of digital platform, we will minimize those problems. So what do we do in Tambov province for this objective? We've managed today, at least in 2018, we've managed to create the first, I don't know if there is any other region who has the same thing. So we've created the first alpha version of the agricultural platform, interacting with Rostelecom, with Skolkovo Foundation, and in 2019 we will introduce the beta version of this platform. We hope to have support from Skolkovo Grant Foundation because it was of great use in 2018. We have a good internet from Rostelecom, and we use tested software and applications for e-commerce and agricultural field. We also use in this platform new products to interact with banking systems, with their banking products, like Sberbank, Rossельхозbank and other banks. And those are applications which are tested, which are approved. So this marketing component we have included it in our platform, and also we have planned to use a number of applications I've mentioned before, like Smart Field and others, Smart Garden. Today, this platform has only basic function. We have planned to start its use in 2019 to test all its main functions. We are the pilot region for this project, and our experience is useful for the creation of a bigger platform for the whole industry. And there is another important detail, and it's that the access to that platform, we offer it not only to big industries, big enterprises, but also to small enterprises and medium enterprises in the agriculture. And today they have a great need of those communications.
So we have gathered some positive experience, and we do hope to make use of it in the framework of our Michurinska Valley Center. Well, it has been thoroughly examined at various venues, various levels, and the State Duma Committee and the government. It has been approved by the Ministry of Science and Education, by the Russian Academy of Sciences, and we are expecting further support in order to create an environment that will be conducive to a faster and better implementation of our innovation. We're open to cooperation, we're ready to share, so thank you. Thank you indeed. Thank you indeed. Could you please note this? Alexei Gordeev mentioned that earlier. We have already shaped up some kind of environment, competitive environment in the farming sector, and it is perfect because we're talking about a highly competitive environment, a ramified and well-developed environment, and and operators are seeking to increase their efficiency. From a broader perspective, some farms may be lagging behind in terms of the digital transformation, but they are making produce. They are supplying produce to the market. And the farming sector also produces a lot of waste, by the by, and we need to think of how to utilize this waste. Although there have been several inventions and new developments in terms of waste utilization, if we take a look at the map of the world, then we'll see that there are so little virginal land. It is just 5% as compared to 20% just a year ago. So we don't really have a lot of farmland available to us. So the Altai territory, it may not be in the very top of the list, not at the bottom of the list, but it still can boast some farmland. In this connection, I have a question to Viktor Antonenko, the governor of Altai territory. Your the province was selected as a pilot area for new projects. So you've been busy creating a digital environment for the farming sector. So what can you say now, after some time has passed, and whether this is conducive to making your farming sector more competitive or better in any other respect? Thank you. Thank you, Alexei Vasilievich. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, participants in this discussion. First of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity to come over to speak, to tell you about our progress in the farming sector and digital transformation in the Altai territory. the opportunity to tell you more about what we think is going to happen in our area. So this meeting is very important because it offers us a unique opportunity to share our expertise, our perspectives. Sometimes we may indulge in wishful thinking, but this down-to-earth talk may be a very good opportunity for us indeed. Altai territory is very well known and it does not require any special presentation, I think. Still, some statistics for starters. The farming sector is a leading sector in our regional economy. It accounts for 20% of the regional output. Almost 70% of it, or 11.5 million hectares of farmland. And 6.5 million is plowland, which is probably the largest amount of plowland in the entire Russian Federation. We have 33 or 44% of the population are rural dwellers in our region. In terms of the farming sector, although our region has taken a leading position in terms of farming production, we still are determined to intensify and further develop the agro-industrial complex. We export 80% of the farming produce, and we tackle our outstanding challenges. We've been seeking to increase the export of our agricultural produce, especially when it comes to grain, and we are determined to meet this challenge and to increase our exports. So we are very sensitive to current developments in current environment, and we are busy in training highly skilled personnel, introducing new technologies, and doing whatever it takes to achieve digital transformation. So, talk about that. Starting with the year 2015, our regional Ministry of Agriculture has introduced an automated system of document processing, and especially when it comes to receiving and making use of federal support to the farming sector. And it has been reviewed and positively appraised by the Ministry of Agriculture. In the year 2017, we have supplemented this system by a new module of monitoring of the plowland in the region using the geotechnologies, the so-called Ruskis. And we have already uploaded at least 1,000 plowland sites, which amounts to 94 to 95% of the entire plowland in the Altai region, so that we could monitor the utilization and the efficient use of farmlands. Well, this system integrates more than 2,000 farming operators, and it is going to be supplemented by public data from the state register of the titles for farmland. We are engaged in the space monitoring and the remote control of combine harvesters and tractors. We have just started implementing these. Advanced digital technologies account for 10% of all farmland operations. And we further believe that we are on the right track and we are going to step up on this effort of introducing digital technologies. So I may mention the Rodninskaya farm, which is part of the KDV group. It is very busy introducing new IT solutions in farm operations, and these new technologies helped it improve yields 3 times over. Some other farms in our regions could include, could improve the yields for winter crops, 54 centers or 5.4 tons per hectare, which is not bad at all. And we are introducing smart agricultural machinery and appliances. We are borrowing from the advanced international experience. For example, in our Mikhailovsky partner farm, we use sprinklers equipped with photo sensors and the most advanced kind of farming machinery and appliances. And I believe that our producers are already compelled in moving forward along the digital path. And this spills over to our adjacent industries. Here's one example. The Barnaul Design Office, Vostok, is started producing remote control systems for crop cultivation. And this is something that was supported by the regional government. The company named the new technology ERA is developing and introducing new equipment for precise land cultivation, land use, which matches best international analogs, while that is related to new sprinklers and new control systems for fertilizer, liquid fertilizer plants and satellite monitoring systems. This helped us build a whole cluster for farming machine building. It's called the Altai AutoCam, which is made up of a whole dozen of farming machinery factories, and some universities have joined in the club, and entirely this cluster employs in excess of 2,000 people. So speaking about the digital transformation of the farming sector, by and large, it looks like this. So we are going to intensify our efforts on building the so-called competence center or the excellence center on the basis of the farming university of Altai. We will build up a center for spatial data that will offer broad access of farmers and farming operators to the state information. And we have launched 3 pilot operations which make use of the navigation and positioning systems. And we are working together with Rostelecom and with the Russian space systems, with Nat Geo Network and others. We have signed contracts with them and we are going to build up on this cooperation. Well, there's a 3-prong challenge we are dealing with. This has already been mentioned. First, we need to develop infrastructure. we need to build up on human resources, and thirdly, we need to supply advanced machinery to the farming sector that would be well positioned to make use of the most advanced and best technologies. Thank you. So, in wrapping it up, let me say that based on the experience accumulated so far, we are ready to act as a pilot site for new digital projects in the digital farming sector. We've been included in the overall project of digital technologies in the farming sector, and we will certainly share our results and our experience with the Ministry of Telecom and Mass Media and with the Ministry of Agriculture and with our partners, so that this may hopefully bring about a new federal digital farming project. Thank you so much. It is so heartening to see that you are also competing for the attention of the federal authorities. Let me now shift into an upper gear. We have listened a lot to public servants, we've listened a lot to regional administrators. We are certainly trying to borrow from the best experiences internationally. However, the well-known Mars company suggests that in the coming few years, a lot of major operators, food processors, will cease to be. And the major expertise these companies need to build on and to accumulate is new technologies, to introduce new technologies in their value chain. And this is only possible through the takeover and through the buyout of startup companies and small innovative ventures. Looking back at 5 years, yesterday, Coca-Cola closed a deal in the acquisition of Costa Coffee, $5 billion. Just think about this. Then, if you remember, it all started with Tim China taking over Syngenta for a handful of $1 billion. Then DuPont was taken over. Then there was a mega transaction where by Monsanto was taken over and merged. Those were major multinationals. Those were the leaders of the market. And this brings about a question of whether there's any implicit threat for Russian businesses, and how are they going to compete nationally and internationally when branching out to foreign markets. So we are in the digital era now, and it is a matter of whether we'll be able to grapple with big data or blockchain technologies. This may be interesting indeed. However, this brings about other implications. Also, what about personal data protection? Say, well, there's a private consumer, we've taken their personal data, and what if we want to branch out and go international? How do we handle this personal data? Are we going to protect other data which are stored in our digital storage? And should we think really hard about digital threats or other aspects of this? Digital technologies are normally taken as advanced by definition. However, there are some problems associated with them. There is a lack of skilled personnel. There is an impediment to the fast introduction of digital technologies because they do not fit into existing management structures. So I want to pass the floor on to the CHERKIZOVO Group, to Sergei Mikhailov from CHERKIZOVO. You are a leader of digital transformation. There's no question about that. So what is your perspective of the digital transformation of the farming sector, of the food processing sector? You have a new fully robotized, fully automated facility, but then if you are going the automation path, you need to downsize and you need to let a lot of people go. How are we going to deal with that? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you indeed. I would like to take your questions and share our expertise. Indeed, the introduction of IT solutions and digital technologies when it comes to meat processing and food processing in general has been growing year to year. And this is a sine qua non for improving our competitive edge in Russia and elsewhere, particularly if we want to export. And this is what we plan to do, because in the coming years, Russia needs to take a leading position as a food exporter. This takes both cost reduction and better productivity, but also food safety. Talking about us, over the past 3 years, we've invested about 10 billion rubles in IT solutions, digital technologies, and automation. We have introduced ERP systems, machine vision, and we built our own research facility and a laboratory, and there's a whole long list of what we have implemented over the recent years. In Russia, the modernization of the farming sector took a long time, and it happened only lately, in the recent 10 to 15 years, when the import substitution played the leading tune, and we are about the last of the major countries which embarked on the upgrade and modernization.
In Europe and United States, they did it a long time ago. We have the unique possibility to use and to adapt the newest technologies which are accessible today in the market, and use the most advanced technologies, IT technologies. For example, 10-15 years ago when we started pig breeding, we were producing about 10 tons of meat with 2,000 employees, and now we have 30,000 tons, 300 tons with the same 2,000 employees. So it's a good example. We're using new technologies, probably not only IT technologies, but there is another example. Recently we've had a robotized plant to produce sausages with the use of the newest technologies, and it's not just a plant for meat products, but it's an IT project with ERP system with 18 robots, a high level of robotization. Although it's not something very new, because we are using the ERP system and robots for many years, but those robots, they are synchronized and they are controlled by ERP system, but not by people. So this is the industry 4.0. We have no human factor there. People just maintain system in working conditions and controls the final result of the process. So it helps to reduce costs and to guarantee the quality and the safety of produced food, because unfortunately less people you have in production zone, less risks you have for the biosafety of the product. And to put you some other statistical data, recently we saw a report on robots. Russia bought and uses 200 robots last year, and China bought 9,000 robots. Although China is the country where we have a cheap working force, but it shows that today, if we want to have good expectation, China has 69,000 robots and they use them for exportation. And we have only 200 bought in 2018. As to Alexander's words on the problems for business for the implementation of digital technologies, so judging by our experience of robotized plant in Kashira, we reduced considerably the number of employees, but there is a huge lack of highly qualified specialists in the first place, engineers who are able to maintain such a high-level technology, IT engineers, IT specialists. So I'd say that the state and the enterprises, they have to think how we can train, how we can educate such specialists, because we have to continue with the digitalization, and we cannot do it without trained personnel. And we saw it. There were a time when we have national projects which impulsed a lot the national agriculture, and probably you also have to think about a kind of stimuli, probably tax stimuli for digitalization, for automatization, because here you have to pay a lot, and the interest level is still quite high, and sometime in Europe you can borrow money for 1.52%, and there the automatization is always rentable. But in Russia today, sometimes you have to do it just because you're interested in it, but not because it's economically reasonable. As to the digitalization and the improvement of the regulation and control procedures and the use of IT technologies, I would like to mention a good example in my opinion. Last year we introduced the electronic system of registration of mercurium, and we've improved the level of regulation and also reduced the load on the business sector, because we were spending hundreds of millions of rubles in printing the veterinary certificates. Today we have a digital database, and we see that the traceability of our products is better. The regulation bodies, they can control the safety, the quality of products following all the chain. It also helps to prevent all kind of epidemics, because we always see the origin of the product and all the operators involved in the production, storage, transport, because sometimes we just in the past we just didn't have any information about number of, for example, pigs in different provinces, but this mercury system helps to have all this data to reduce the number of falsified products and to maintain clean competence. And it's a good example of use of IT technologies. Probably we can apply them also in the customs, in other regulation spheres. That's basically all on my behalf. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I believe that if we continue at Cherkizovo pace, we will have another example, I think, of in financial sphere, but in agriculture, and following our agenda. I've mentioned before that we're speaking mostly about the project for the end consumer part, and it's logical. Last year, Yandex Еда, for example, Yandex Food, has grown by more than 1 million orders. And there is another very important aspect for companies who work with final consumers. You know that many companies like McDonald's, for example, they have special touch screens where you can make your order. It's a small innovation, but it's important. And also we all use our phones which helps us to order food too with applications. And there are some restaurants, many restaurants in other European countries and Western countries, where you order your food by phone, you go there and you take it home. And here we have strong requirements to logistics for those companies who bring food directly to the consumer, and we would like to hear from a foreign company which works in the Russian market, from KFC company, Rais Telman Polikov. So please tell us, what kind of digitalization problem do you have? What are the advantages of digitalization? Why do you do it? Because Western companies, they are very practical. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you in this great event. Briefly about KFC, it's a food company which is the biggest one by the number of restaurants in Russia. We have 744 restaurants, and 138 of them were opened the last year, so we are growing, opening 100 plus restaurants every year in the last 4 years. And we are represented geographically from Kaliningrad to Vladivostok in many cities of the Russian Federation. And as to the digitalization, today we see three spheres where we have to work. The first one is the accomplishment of the laws of Russian Federation. We have as to the digitalization, work with consumer and work with suppliers. As to the accomplishment of the legislation of the Russian Federation, there are two laws. The law 54 on the online cash desk, and the law which regulates the connection of the commercial enterprises to the systems of control of alcoholic beverages regulation. The use of IT technologies here helps you to achieve the transparency and to analyze big data. And our business wants to have access to those big data, because by now they are in hands of the states, but we see great potential for huge innovations here. As to the consumer, I hope that you also are consumers of our market, and you see how the interface is changing. And we see a strong and deep transformation, because everybody wants to have fast service, high quality service. And you see in many restaurants digital screens for orders, the digital loyalty programs. It's a very important line of work, and we are investing huge money in new technologies here, and also the interaction with the suppliers, which has to do with our today's agenda. We are waiting many new and good things from the digitalization of the agro-industrial complex, and I'll explain why. Our company buys more than 85% of products in Russia, so we are interested in the stability of supplies and of quality of Russian products, and we are in favor of the national security program, because we need a stable access to Russian products, basically to chicken, which is the main product that we sell. And the companies which go through the digitalization, they are ready to increase their potential, they are ready to scale up, and it's very important for us because our business grows fastly, so we need to guarantee the supplies of our main products. As to our challenges, in case of chicken, we see that the main productive facilities, they are concentrated in the central part of Russia, but we don't have them at Urals, at Siberia. So we are looking for companies which are ready to scale up and to have geographical expansion. The other important issue are the costs, because the digitalization in the agro-industrial complex helps to reduce costs of the product we buy and the product we sell to our final consumers. Also, the quality, the traceability of the production chain, it's very important because it allows us to guarantee the quality, and the digitalization here makes this chain very transparent and clear. And another issue which is also very important for us, because we here are responsible not only for Russia but also for the rest of this community. I mean the export of our products, the products of the production of the Russian Federation to other markets, to other countries. We have a good and successful project of cooperation for the supplies of our products to Kazakhstan, to Northern Africa and other countries, Middle East countries. As to the support that we offer to our suppliers, in particular we offer precise forecast, because these suppliers, they depend a lot on the forecast that the buyer has for its production. So we have a system of integrated planning at our enterprises, which helps to have mid-term forecast, long-term forecast, and it also helps to our suppliers to plan their production. They know when and where they need to open new facilities. We also use the electronic documentation system, reducing our costs and the costs that bear the producers of food and food raw material, and we analyze all kind of means that help to digitalize the quality control system for the supplies from the producer to the restaurant. And as to our industry, we are going to the concept of smart restaurant, where we have digitalization both in our work with suppliers, in work with consumer, and also in the kitchen where we produce the food. So we of course are interested in the introducing of the concept of smart enterprise and smart distribution, and to integrate those concepts. And there is a question, sorry. And please finish your presentation. And we have this. You've mentioned that the digitalization of agro-industrial complex can be either hype or an important trend. We believe that it's an important trend. We work in fast food, and it's a fast industry, not only for the consumer, but also as to the internal processes. And we always say fast or dead. And now, analyzing the trends of the last 2 years, we see that for our industry, this phrase is transformed into digitalized or dead. Otherwise, you cannot compete. Sorry, I'd like to ask you a question. Yesterday, we spoke with the Prime Minister. I would like to ask, what happens with your omelette? Have you heard the question? But in generally, the fast food industry is developing under control. because you are between the final consumer and the business, and the quality issue is very important. Yeah, the quality issue is the most important issue for us, is the question of standards, and I believe that the Cherkizovo company will agree that the interaction and the standards in our industry is the most important, is more important than the price. So it's totally okay with the omelette, don't worry. Dear colleagues, let's continue. A good example of the KFC company here. So let's think how we can achieve the same results as KFC in Russia, but in other countries. I also work as a professor of venture financing in many universities of Russia, and it's always interesting to look at startup companies who come to you with their business plan, with their incomes, which are growing very fast. And you ask them why do they have this growth plan, and they say that we are planning to get to China at this or that moment of our business plan and to achieve those results. So China, with its huge population, with probably its huge demand for healthy life products, it makes us to think about things which was mentioned in May decrees of our presidents, that we have to start heavy lifting. We have to improve our export to foreign countries 2.2 times. So now I would like to ask you, Andrei, as the representative of Russian Export Center, could you tell us how can we accomplish this task, please?
Right, not only the Russian Export Center. I think everybody will have enough limelight. So we have some new statistics for 2018. So we've set another record. So previously 143, it was the record-setting oil exports. And we believe that we will set a new record for food export, 25.2 billion. So congratulations to everyone on that, because this is a very good starting position. Getting back to the terminology, and keeping in mind what Alexei Vasilyevich has said, to be more specific, e-trade, logistics, and product markings. E-trade. We've opened 5 national e-trade pavilions in Asia, and we've brought many Russian companies onto them. However, this has been a modest example, because our packaging and certification and delivery consistency leaves a lot to be desired. Same with quality consistency, branding. We are at a very early stage in that process, although we are determined to move further on. There used to be a major exhibition in Shanghai last November, and we've received a high visit from them, and China offered a presentation for the new strategy of AliExpress, and they plan to increase their sales to $500 billion and ensure the trans-border deliveries of dairy products to China. 3 days is the average projected delivery time. One company, Alibaba. Yes, it is a major company, but we are talking about huge digital transformation indeed. Think about delivering Russian dairy products to the final Chinese consumer in 3 days' time. We are setting up a special program to help achieve that. We've created a new brand name together with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're started promoting it. Logistics, that comes second. Logistics requires a lot of effort. CHERKIZOVO, this is an inspiring example. It is indeed. However, we need much more than that. We have launched 3 regular trains, and the company named Selatina is launching yet another regular train in order to reduce delivery times by 3 times over, and the delivery cost, overhead costs 4 times over, which is very good. Well, however, we aren't talking about 3 days, not yet. We're talking about 7 days delivery time, but it's better than 3 weeks a short while ago. And now we may benefit from a common operator that will help us integrate the whole delivery system, the whole logistics network. We talked with logistical people and with Selatina yesterday, and they say that this may be difficult to make this happen by making use of just one company. There's going to be a conflict of interest. We may think better than that, and we may do better, and we may set up a logistical cluster. By our statistics, 1 day in transborder delay when it comes to farming produce is equivalent to the loss of 10% in export terms. Government support. This year, in 2019, there are no federal subsidies, and we spend our own money, and we hope that the government will see we're doing well and will give us a helping hand in a short while. But we need to do better than just announce a new brand. No, we need to promote, we need to move onwards, we need to make use of available expertise, and the companies may actually require some special knowledge to make this happen. And packaging and markings. We've already mentioned tracking systems. What's important is that Russian produce may be very appealing to international consumers because we do not have any genetically modified products, and our safety standards are very high. We're talking about standards which are much higher than those in Asian countries, and we have introduced our certification system. We can do better than that through better markings. So we need to enable consumers to identify exactly of who produced a given merchandise and when and where, and have all the information they require about the merchandise they're about to buy. This is important, and this will help the market, and this will help improve the quality of food produce in Russia. You may remember a few years ago there used to be a pilot project on fur coat. Well, the market has fully transformed in the recent few years. It turned out that a lot of market has become transparent, and we introduced new marking systems, new certification, and we cleansed the entire fur coat markets. There are a lot of operators who are in the shadows, who are working just below the mark. We need to change that. Thank you. Thank you, Andrei Alexandrovich. It is very good that these state-owned companies are actually taking so much part in this process. And I want to give the floor to Wen Sijong from China. So what do you think? What about our hopes for exporting to China? Is this reasonable? Does it make sense? Because you have your own domestic production. Alexei Vasilievich, dear colleagues, let me take a moderator's question. Yes, we welcome. We welcome this. We welcome imports from Russia. Because in our understanding, it is more environmentally friendly merchandise and even tastier. Because I eat your food. And previous speakers mentioned their efforts to export to China and that they are doing better than before and they have achieved good results in exporting their merchandise to China. We do know about this fair, this exhibition, and we have observed its workings closely. We have the statistics and we see a bright future for exports and we want to work together with you. Let me get back to our current terminology. And I offer you cooperation in 3 areas. It will just take a couple of minutes. First, the use of drones. Use of drones in farmland. Because the capacity of the Chinese market is 100 billion yuans. Secondly, the vertically integrated farming operations. Because, well, there's plenty of farmland in Russia. As compared to our population, we don't have so much land in China. We are limited in terms of available farmland in our country. So starting with the year 2015, the government of China has compelled us to build up vertical farming, meaning that you build the pallets one on top of the other. So in a vertical way, and then you place fertilizers on the very top of the stack so that it seeps downwards. And this helps us reduce the actual farming areas used, whereas yields will grow. So any family, a rural family, an urban family, can build this patch of land, a vertical patch of land, which are much encouraged in China. And the third area is vegetable and fruit cultivation according to Chinese medicine regulations. Look, in Chinese medicine, each fruit, each piece of vegetable has its own role, its own function. Say, there are some products for smokers. If you have a lung problem, it means that you need to take a pear, at least 1 pear every day. If you have a problem with intestine, with the stomach, then you need to take bananas as much as you can to prevent coughs and sneezes. There is yet another vegetable, and which is called ginger. And, well, if there is a season for coughs and sneezes in schools, then you need to cultivate more ginger in China so that the diet of school children be reinforced and supplemented by a lot of ginger. I think that this may be also helpful for your people as it is for our people. So, yes, we welcome Russian food. Yes, we welcome your exports to China. I'm not sure about bananas. We may not be able to help you with bananas, but yes, tea cures any ailment, any disease. And now I have a question for the governor of Kaluga region, Mr. Artemonov. Last year's investment in Kaluga region exceeded 80 billion rubles, and you proved to all skeptics that you have a managerial talent. And you created a unique cluster, a unique automotive cluster, and you hosted facilities from many international manufacturers. So do you have any plans for the digital transformation of the farming sector at all? Thank you. First of all, I want to say this. The digital technologies may be global and they may be local. When it comes to the digital transformation of the global farming sector, so this can happen if we transfer all farmland on a digital footage. Actually, well, I believe all regions will support me. Yes, we can give back part of our subsidies, part of the subsidies we receive for the promotion of farming operations. But look, if everyone launches their own isolated project, nothing good will come out of it. These efforts will be lopsided. These efforts will be kind of cranky, and we won't have a single nationwide platform for the digital transformation of the farming sector. Not at all. The next thing that comes to mind is quality. When we come about digital technologies, then Sirius is, oh, no, Mercury, not Sirius, Mercury. Mercury, yes, I will talk about Sirius later. Mercury is the most successful project of all. Why? The reason is, although it is just incipient, it is a very nascent initiative, and there's so much speculation about mercury from other food producers, especially those busy making use of the palm oil. And of course they're very critical about this mercury. But I support Cherkizova and Cherkizova's CEO because, well, this will help us make fair competition, and this will help us make the food market in Russia safer. Yesterday, a person from Finland said that they started with a food market. They started with food safety, started with food security, so invested not in medicine, not in pharmaceuticals, not in machines and technologies, not in diagnostics, but they provided fresh and clean water. They provided safe and fresh food for people. And this is what Mercury is all about. So we need to introduce across-the-board management system in the digitally implemented farming operations. And this is what we need to do. So I don't think we need to slice up this pie. We need to bring it together and implement digital technologies across the board. Yes, Alexei Vasilyevich, yes, we know that. Yes, we know that. We are the old guard, of course. Talking about exports, in Kaluga, we implemented two projects. First, the multimodal logistical complex, and we have special trains that that are moving to the Middle East, and the warehouse facility in Seletina. They're shipping their cargo from us because they do not have the transport hub that we have. And secondly, we've built a new facility to process food marked for exports, especially for long distances. So we've reduced the shipping time to 7 years. It used to be 45 days. It's only 7 days now. So this special facility treats packed food by gamma rays. No harm, no damage, and that concerns poultry. And the shelf life goes up by 4 times over. So when it comes to the local digital projects, robotics is there. We have implemented 100 automated robotized farming operations. These farms, yes, they are successful. They're working well. But this is a local exercise. We aren't talking about general digital transformation. We're only talking about the automation of milking, of the milking process. This is something that's been in place for ages. Or the herbicide applications, fertilizer applications. Last year, we attempted to fully introduce these technologies in permeable sandy soils. We do not have black soil, no, sandy soils only. And we got yields of 7 tons per hectare. And this is an awful lot. We only achieved that through the use of digital technologies or corporate management. Looks nice, but we need to be more specific than that. So we're talking about managing the entire system, or where the Minister of Agriculture used to have a very large screen in his office with a live picture of what's happening everywhere. That may be a good idea to think about. We may talk about digital inequality in this country, and the problem is there. And we need to deal with that. We're not to level it out. And of course, we need some broadband internet access to cope with that. But look at China. China is great. China is doing fine. But the countries which we call advanced are lagging far behind us. And this applies to Japan. And we are digitally more advanced than Japan. So what can I say here? First, Alexei Vasilievich, if we could fully digitize our farmland, this is a big outstanding issue. If we receive an investor, it takes them 6 months more to digitize this.
Today we don't have the right to use the space data. We don't have the clean connection and positioning. We are buying it from United States, but it's stupid. We have to solve this problem because we have our satellites. All we need is just have the right to use this information to digitalize our lands. For a reason it's classified by now. We also have to work on training. We have to change the training plans of all the universities because they are still teaching the same thing they taught in 70s and 80s of the 20th century. So there can be no digitalization when we have specialists trained in such universities, and only those who try to learn something by themselves, they are working today in this field. And we also have to improve the legal framework. Yesterday there was an example about omelette. I will put you another example. Stefan, you all know him. He took his fertilizers from the farm to prepare them for their use, and there was a man nearby, ex-worker of the law enforcement system, and they put him a fine for storing these fertilizers before their use. And they just don't understand that before using the fertilizer you have to have it stored for a year or two. And we discuss it with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and he said that there is that they have no document which regulates this kind of activities. So by now it turns out that according to the law they had right, and we have to improve this field. And we have plenty of the so-called dachas, and it also impede the construction of new farms according to the laws. But look, in Austria, in Germany, you have farms within the villages. You have them nearby the residence, the houses. So it means that we have to change our regulatory framework to help our agriculture. I got a question to Mr. Andrei Klishkov. Dear Andrei, I am sure that you have your experience, you have something that offered to us, and I would like you also to comment on the main problematic issues that needs to be solved together by the business and by the state. Thank you very much. Coming back to the beginning of our discussion, I begin that both for Orlov province and for Russia, the IT technologies, it's not a hype, but it's a reality of today. And in our small province, we see that the extensive stage of agriculture development is finished, and today we have to improve our technologies, to use the digital technologies to achieve new results, and about 100 of big and medium enterprises today in our province, they use digital technologies and they work as to the final consumers of those technologies. We have 200 agricultural organizations, 300 processing plants, and about 100,000 small households. And in our small province, about 23% of agricultural enterprises use IT technologies. It's one of the best indicators for the central federal district. As to the use of those technologies and the problems that we have, my colleagues, other governors, they mentioned the problem of precision land working. It helps to improve the economic efficiency, it helps to reduce costs, and there is a necessity of some extra support. But even now, when it comes to the use of fertilizers, we've got cost reduction by 20%, thanks to the use of those technologies. So it's about 2,000 rubles per hectare. So it helps to improve efficiency a lot and to reduce the cost by 100 million rubles. We also mentioned the problem of the use of satellites and the necessity of digital map of farming, and it's a reality that today we have to pay to foreigners, paying 3.5 euros for a hectare. Unfortunately, we don't have any national analogs, and we have to build up our electronic database using foreign data. We use the robotization technologies. You know that we have a law on organic agriculture, and today in Orlov province, Tambov province, Lipetsk province and Tatarstan Republic, we are working on our local regional legal framework. And our province has Orlov University, which has a competence center for food and for healthy food. And as an expert council, we have a council which is presided by Nobel Prize from Italy, and it helps us to use all kind of the best practices, including the European ones, to apply new technologies. I also would like to mention two important problems. I've got a chart here on the proposals at the federal level on proposals to different ministries. We see that today the digitalization is mostly oriented towards a platform, those competences, they are very important, but we have a very lack part with the infrastructure and the so-called ad hoc programs. Only one infrastructure program in the Ministry of Agriculture. So today we work a lot on the platform, but we are not creating the base for the future development. So those platform solutions, they also need some grounds to be put on. So we have to offer the investors more possibilities to implement their ideas. And we also have a reduced number of proposals of products and services from Russian companies. For Russian companies, it's also the low accessibility of internet in foreign rural areas. We also need more active use of system of remote analysis of lands, and a huge lack of trained personnel. We see that our universities do not train enough specialists for our necessities, and I would like to come back to the infrastructure, because today's infrastructure isn't enough to for the implementation of our platform solutions. And I would like to also mention three challenges which has to do with the balance between the interests of business and state. The digitalization of agriculture is making business bigger, and it contributes to the creation of big holdings, and it has to do with a number of risks, including ecological, environmental ones. So today the state needs to change the legal framework in this field to maintain this balance. The intensification of production and the growth of production contributes to the reduction of rural area population. People goes from villages to the cities, and it's a social and political problem which has to be dealt with. And finally, as we've said before, now we see a request for new jobs, for new personnel, and we have to offer a response to help Cherkizovo company and other companies to find personnel they need for their investment, for their development, help them to find this working force in local market and not to bring them from other places. Our colleagues mentioned the necessity of regional project. I would like to offer the Cherkizovo company to start such a project in our Orlov province. Thank you very much. So, as we said before, the digitalization of the agro-industrial complex is not a hype, it's something that we're really doing. And there's always very important to have a dialogue between the business and the state in this field. And I see that today the cooperation is going smoothly and we are on the right way. Today I've also heard that Euro even are digitalized or dead. Unfortunately, we have to leave this hall at 11 because there will be another event. So thank you very much for coming here, for sharing your opinion with our colleagues. Thank you very much, Mr. Alexei, for coming here. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Cherkizovo Group for organization of this event.